Crazy 800-pound silverback.
Hi guys, Asmo here. The moment I saw the Quadrilla Leap Slam MTX, I knew I have to make a build with it. So I decided to go the Ignite route. We went for Melee Ignite Elementalist because Elementalist Ascendancy helps us with Ignites and with AoE, and I decided I'm gonna scale a huge amount of AoE, big ignites, and make it into a comfortable mapper that can just destroy whole screens with a single slam. The idea for this build is to basically just do one giant slam and ignite and explode the entire screen. I'm gonna go over all of the skill gems, I'm gonna go over all the items and how I crafted the items as well, and also the passive skill tree and how are we getting this much AoE. In previous video I also showed you how this character can actually clear juiced T16 maps with just auto attack. So this skill can be pretty much replaced for anything. I am using Leap Slam of Groundbreaking because it scales very well in terms of the damage. It gives us big ignites, it's very cool, the MTX is amazing. However, you can use pretty much any attack and the build will still work for the purpose of clearing juiced maps like this. This build is especially good at things like Expedition, it's really good at things like Harvest, it's pretty good at Legions as well. So anything where you need to have a huge amount of clear, and the quicker you clear like a huge amount of monsters, the better it is. This is great at. It's great at things like also breaches, anything where you have like lots of monsters packed together, this is gonna perform very, very well at. So let's go over the skill gems first. We are using the Leap Slam of Groundbreaking. The Leap Slam of Groundbreaking, the difference between this one and the regular Leap Slam, which I have here, is that it has a bigger radius, so it has a bigger AoE, and it has a bigger attack damage and effectiveness of attack damage at 325 compared to 150 of the regular Leap Slam. But it has a drawback of not being able to jump very far. So I have basically you can see I have Leap Slams on my bar, and if I do a max range Leap Slam of Groundbreaking, my character jumps only this far, but if I use regular Leap Slam, I jump further, right? So regular Leap Slam, you can jump further, and I still have it for mobility, and even with this regular Leap Slam, which is only linked to faster attacks and inspiration to lower the mana cost and also lower the mana cost of Seismic Cry, even with the regular Leap Slam that's not supported by all of this stuff, I still just clear the game, right? You can literally just clear with your regular Leap Slam. So you don't have to use the Leap Slam of Groundbreaking, you can pretty much use anything. But yeah, we're using the Leap Slam of Groundbreaking. Then we're supporting with Deadly Ailments. We have Awakened Elemental Damage with attacks. We have Awakened Swift Affliction, Ignite Proliferation, and then Fist of War. Instead of Fist of War for maximum DPS, you could also use Volatility, but I want to have bigger AoE, and the Fist of War gives me bigger AoE. Also, I don't attack that often, so the Fist of War actually works very well because the playstyle is so that you attack once, you destroy just multiple packs, you destroy like 2 screens in each direction, and then you move on to the next thing, and then you attack that. So basically, when you leap slam once, there's gonna be nothing for you to attack. Even if you're gonna have things like Beyond, even if you're gonna have like altar monsters spawning afterwards, you're gonna have lingering damage from the Ignite proliferation and your Herald of Ash and so on. It's gonna be going on even after the mobs are dead, so it's gonna proliferate the damage further. Ignite Proliferation is not the highest DPS gem I can use here. However, I'm using this because the Ignite Proliferation AoE actually scales with your character's AoE. So you can actually scale this Ignite Proliferation as opposed to the Ignite Proliferation that comes from the gloves or that comes from something like Fan the Flames. But I'm also using Fan the Flames because this Ignite Proliferation is linked to my skill gem. So sure, I'm gonna slam and I'm gonna ignite, and this ignite is gonna spread, but then I'm also gonna explode because I'm using an explode chest. So I want that explode to ignite, and that ignite to also proliferate, so I can inflict ignite on more monsters and just chain explode ignite together with the Herald of Ash, and it creates this insane chain reaction, right? This basically setup, or whatever you want to call it, this set of different mechanics can be combined on virtually any skill that uses physical damage that can convert it to fire, or basically with elementals can be pretty much any damage type, right? So if you're playing an ignite build, if you put explode, I would recommend having like 1/3 of the time you basically want like every third monster or every fourth monster to explode, and that's gonna give you this consistency. But yeah, let's continue with the skill gem. So in the helmet, we're using Arcanist Brand with the flammability, elemental weakness, and flame surge. So this is for single target. If I'm fighting a boss, I'm simply gonna put the brand on it, and the brand is gonna apply both of the curses and the flame surge without me having to worry. I don't have to aim, I don't have to think about it, and it's just basically gonna follow. The brand is gonna stick to the target, and it's gonna put the flame surge on it wherever it stands. So if the boss moves, it's still gonna apply the flame surge wherever it stands. So that's very, very useful. I already showed the leap slam setup, so leap slam, faster attacks, and inspiration together with seismic cry. I'm using seismic cry simply for the extra attacks at AoE, the extra AoE to my attack. So I have it on my left click, and because we have allocated the call to arms, this is instant, right? So I'm just doing this, and this applies to my attacks. I don't have to do anything. I'm just simply walking, and on left click this is going to automatically trigger. And then here we have cast on damage taken Immortal Call. I am getting endurance charges, so this is very helpful because we are using enduring composure. There's more ways. There's like endurance charge on stun and things like that that you can use. You can use charms with those modifiers, but I'm using enduring composure, so this is working very, very well with Immortal Call on cast on damage taken. Very, very good combo on basically any character. Next we have the aura setup. We have Enlighten 4 linked with Malevolence, Determination, Herald of Ash, Herald of Purity, Precision for the accuracy, as well as critical strike chance, which will help me trigger my elemental overload more consistently. And then we also have Grace separately here because it doesn't need to be linked with Enlighten, since I'm using the Owl's Uprising Amulet, which gives me Grace has no reservation. And also I have Dread Banner. However, with Dread Banner I find that my mana is a little bit low, and sometimes I would not have enough mana to attack if I want to spam my attack, and I would rather not run it. You can turn it on, you can still play the build with it, but I would rather not have any situations where I ever have any mana issues, so that's why I'm not using it. Now let's move on to the gear. The gear is pretty straightforward. This is actually a very simple character that you can use this template for many different builds. So Void Forge, the reason why we're using Void Forge is because it's simply the most damage. You can also use something like Morohi Eki or Erki or whatever, however you pronounce that mace, but it's very, very slow. So even though we don't care about attack speed, it's still gonna be just like too uncomfortably slow, and you're also gonna be losing accuracy, which sucks. So then you don't want to go crit and elemental overload. Instead you would go for something like Resolute Technique, but I find that elemental overload approach works very nicely with this. This also gives me more life than Morohi. This also gives me the extra AoE. The AoE that I would get back from these nodes is basically given by the Void Forge itself, right? Because if I was using a mace, I would just get these mace nodes, and this gives me increased AoE as well, which would allow me to stack even more AoE, but I think we already have enough of that. So that's why we're using this sword. And then for corruption, I have here the socketed gems are supported by additional accuracy. If you don't have that, you simply have to use like another jewel with accuracy and you'll be fine. And then also for the enchant, the increased physical modifier magnitudes is very nice because it increases the 700 physical damage as extra elemental to 756, right? So it's a huge chunk of extra added damage. And again, it doesn't really matter what type of element we get, because we're playing Elementalist, we can ignite with all of the elemental damage types and physical damage and even chaos damage. Then we have another unique. Let's move through the uniques first maybe. So Polaric Devastation, classic ring that you would use on an ignite build. It gives me some crit chance, which is very nice for proccing of the elemental overload. Also, it gives me the covering enemies in ash, right, which is 20% increased damage taken by them for fire damage, as well as also slowing their movement speed and duration of ailments and elemental damage, and huge amount of resistances, right? This is really good with Resistance Catalyst, which allows you to boost this. Normally it goes up to 40, but with Catalyst it goes to up to 48 res, so that will help you cap your resistances. Then we're using the Owl's Uprising. You have a lot of different options for the different auras because we're using so many auras, but I found that the Dexterity one is the best, right? So the Grace one is the best because we get the Dexterity, which we need for our requirements. We get the increased evasion, we get the life. Nearby enemies grant flask charges. This is good because we are basically playing this as a mapper, right? So we don't care about like many other modifiers. This is actually a useful one. Then we have Rislava's Coil. This is actually a huge amount of damage, assuming you can attack multiple times within the duration of Ignite. The duration of my Ignites, I have some increased duration and I have some Ignites deal damage faster. It evens out about like between 3 and 4 seconds. So I can attack multiple times in that time frame, which makes this actually very beneficial. So if you look at POB, if you look at items, right, let me make sure I'm on the right screen. Okay, where you look at the items, if I take off Rislava's Coil, adding it to the build gives me 58% combined DPS, right? 58% DPS from Rislava's Coil. So that is absolutely massive, right? Huge amount of damage. And that is the reason why I'm not using something like a Mage Blood or a Headhunter, even though both of those would be great. This simply just gives me way too much damage. So that's why we're using it. Also, Corruption for elemental resistances or corruption for some movement speed. There's a bunch of different corruptions you can get. Maybe there's an AoE one. These are very nice to get. And even if you get the corrupted one, you can still use like Tainted Catalyst to increase the attack modifiers. I slapped a few Tainted Catalysts that I had on the belt and I rolled attack modifiers, which is the one that you actually want. Now let's go over the rare items. So for the rare items, first of all, we have the helmet. This is very generic. The rare items are basically something that you would want to use on any build, right? This is like generic attack build helmet. We have like armor evasion base, we have T1 spell suppression fracture, and then we have essence modifier for increased mana reservation efficiency, and you slap these until you get T1 res of any kind, because you can switch between the resistances in harvest. And then you do something like Wild Bristle Matron, or you can do just regular suffixes cannot be changed, and you can reforge life and you have a pretty decent chance of getting a decent life roll, or you can just stick to Eldritch crafting and then you finish it with Eldritch crafts. You can like Eldritch Exalt, Eldritch Annul to get some evasion and armor, and then we craft physical damage from hits taken as fire damage. And for the implicits, we're looking for increased mana reservation efficiency and reduced mana cost of attacks. This is basically a helmet you can slap on any attack build and you're gonna be fine. For the gloves, again, super similar, like very similar. Spell suppression fractured on this, because you're gonna notice that we are on like mega left side of the tree, right? We're as far from spell suppression as you can possibly get. It's like suppression is lava on this skill tree, and we're still getting 100% chance to suppress spell damage, right? So how are we doing this? One of the sources is the gear. So we're getting this suppression here, and then we have on the other suffixes Chaos Res and the Lightning Res. So you can basically roll the Chaos Res Essence, which is gonna guarantee the Chaos Res, and then you can get any of the elemental resistances. You get T1, you get T2, whatever you're happy with. And then for the prefixes, we do something like suffixes cannot be changed again, which can be done with Wild Bristle Matron, and then we are going to unveil until we get the physical damage converted to fire. Technically, you don't need 35%, because it's not actually a big deal. The main thing that it affects is actually the explode from the chest. So you can go with the crafted 25%, or you can go with the 35% and then just have crafted life and then slap some evasion armor on this. On the implicits, we're looking for fire damage over time multiplier, because this is better than the Ignite spread, because the Ignite spread can either come from, like the generic Ignite spread can either come from Gloves implicit, or it can come from Fan the Flames. However, However, Fan the Flames normally here is replacing this node, which is Wasting Affliction, but Wasting Affliction gives you less damage than the 13% fire damage over time multiplier. So it's actually better to have the Fan the Flames and then the fire damage over time multiplier on the gloves. And then the other modifier on the gloves is Inflict Fire Exposure on hit. Because we're not hitting very frequently, we could get fire exposure from something like Awakened Fire Penetration, or not Fire Penetration. There's modifiers where we can get it from different sources that is like a small chance to inflict exposure. However, getting the guaranteed exposure every time we hit is very, very big, because exposure gives me so much damage. Since I'm playing Elementalist, right, we get the Mastermind of Discord, which gives me -25 to affected resistances for exposure. So this is huge, very, very important to apply it with every single hit. Now the boots, super generic boots again. Fractured Spell Suppression, and then you want to roll Essence for chance to avoid being shocked, which is I think the Torment Essence, and then until you roll T1 res of any kind, and then you again lock the suffixes, Veiled Chaos Orb until you unveil, movement speed, right? And the movement speed can come with chance to avoid being chilled, or chance to have onslaught, or it can come with movement speed if you haven't been hit recently, and then you simply craft life on this, which I should fix actually to be 70 instead of 69 XD. And then for the implicits, you want Ignites deal damage faster, which is a very, very nice multiplier, and then Scorch the ground while moving, lasting 4 seconds, which is going to help you with single target damage, just reduce the resistances of whatever you jump on, right? We are playing a melee build, so the Scorch ground is actually useful on this character. Then the ring is basically fixing all the issues for us, right? It's fixing the resistances, the mana cost, because it gives me mana regen minus mana cost, fixing the accuracy, fixing the chaos res, fixing the dexterity requirement, right? And it's very, very simple to craft. You get a fractured accuracy ring, ideally amethyst ring, and then you slap dexterity essences until you get some resistances, right? Any T1 elemental res is good. Could be all res, could be one of the resistances. You're gonna fix it with jewels either way. And then again, you lock the suffixes, you do a Veiled Chaos Orb, you block mana, and then you unveil the life modifier, and then you can exalt something, and then you can also craft the -2 mana cost, and that's basically it. And then you want to use attack catalyst so that you can increase this from 480, it gets to 576. And this is the reason why we have accuracy on ring instead of something like the gloves, right? You can also have the accuracy on the gloves, you can have accuracy on the helmet, but on the rings it is the most efficient because you can have a catalyst that increases it by a lot. And now let's look at the chest, the main piece, I guess, of the build, the thing that makes it work, the thing that makes the huge like proliferation, huge explosions and chain reaction is the chest. So for the chest, you want to have the explode elevated ideally, because that's going to give you a higher chance, right? So it goes up to 35% chance to explode, dealing physical damage. And then I have additional curse with this. The way I crafted this was I got item level 86 Triumphant Lamellar with the Hunter influence, right? The green one, right? And then you simply do Reforge Caster from Harvest, and that is, I think, guaranteed to roll the +1 curse, right? So you have the +1 curse, you want to make sure there is no other modifiers that are influence modifiers on this chest, and then you get a donor chest. Donor chest can be any chest that can roll the tier 1 explode mod, which I think is level 85, and then you simply either do like Jagged Fossils, or I think Jagged Fossils, right? Jagged Fossils are the physical ones. Yeah, I think I used all of them. Or you can do Harvest physical reforges until you get the T1 explode. And then when you get the T1 explode, that's a prefix. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have one empty suffix, and you can, for example, lock prefixes. So you can do prefixes cannot be changed, and then you can do Reforge crit, and that's going to guarantee a crit modifier that's going to be influence modifier for Crusader, and that's going to make sure that you have two modifiers now that are the influence modifiers, and you simply use the Orb of Dominance in order to elevate one of the mods. You have 50-50 to hit the explode. If you don't hit the explode, go again. If you hit the explode, then you Awakener Orb the explode chest. You click Awakener Orb, you click the explode chest, and then you slap it on the Hunter chest with +1 curse, and then you're gonna get some maybe random prefix, maybe random suffixes. You're gonna see what you get, and then you have to work from there. If you have empty prefix, you can lock prefixes and reforge life with the potential of filling in a life modifier. I did this. I got I got tier 10 life, but I was fine with that. I didn't really plan in POB to have life on this chest anyway. The plan for me was just to have explode +1 curse and some resistances and suppression crafted. So I did that. And then once I had the prefix again, I locked prefixes again, and then I did I think Chaos Reforge, right? I think I did Chaos Reforge from Harvest, which guarantees Chaos Resistance. I had the T1 Chaos Res with T6 Fire Res, and then I crafted Spell Suppression on top of that, and that's basically the chest. You can deterministically craft these, and whatever you're gonna have on the prefix is gonna be a little bit RNG, but you can do, you can basically guarantee to have the +1 curse, you can guarantee to have the elevated explode, and you can guarantee to have the chaos resistance of some kind and crafted suppression. And that's basically as good as you can get without spending too much currency. For the flasks, you have a lot of options, but ideally you want to run the Cinder Swallow because this gives you a lot of recovery. This gives you the 10% increased damage for ignited enemies. I'm running Progenesis instead of Life Flask because I'm lazy and I don't want to press Life Flask. And then I'm running Jade with Armor, Granite with Evasion, so just a bunch of armor evasion, and Quicksilver with reduced effect of curses on me because this is supposed to be a mapping character. And that's it when it comes to the gear. Now let's look at the skill tree, which is a major source of our AoE. This is basically how we're getting so much AoE. I wanted to play maybe something like Slayer before and then stack area of effect per endurance charge and play with Ralakesh again, similar to the previous Slayer character that I had, just stack frenzy and endurance charges. However, I actually wanted to have less attack speed so that I can see the gorilla for longer. That was one of the reasons. And then another reason was this actually was not as much AoE as I was getting from everything else that I'm getting now, right? Like right now I'm getting so much more AoE than I would get if I was stacking these endurance charges. And also to stack the endurance charges, I would have to stack frenzy charges, and to stack frenzy charges, I would have to move to the right side of the tree. I would have to path all the way here or anoint this. I would have to path to this, I would have to path to this, and this is just like wrong part of the tree to play Ignite. So I decided to go with Elementalist, which gives you 60% increased AoE, which is absolutely massive. It's great for Ignite, it's great for just single target damage, just gives you so much damage. It's basically the best Ascendancy you can play if you want to play an Ignite build. And then I decided to path to 3 large cluster jewels, and all of these jewels are exactly the same. They are using the Burning Bright, which is burning damage and AoE, Widespread Destruction, which is elemental damage and AoE, and we have this stacked 3 times, and each of these also has, I think, some dexterity because we need to get some extra dexterity to fit our requirements. And then the medium ones are, we have, one of them is different because one is Fan the Flames with Burning Bright, so this gives me AoE. And also we have Enduring Composure, which I mentioned before. But then all of the other mediums are the same thing. Wasting Affliction, Burning Bright. So AoE on every single one of them plus damage. So AoE damage, AoE damage, AoE damage. This one I have not allocated yet because I'm still level 98. This will be what I allocate at level 99. And then also level 100, I guess I would allocate like 50 regen. That would be the two nodes that I'm missing still, but we have Burning Bright, Wasting Affliction, Burning Bright, same thing repeated here. So that's one source of AoE. Another source of AoE was also I was pathing to this Explosive Impact. However, this is very inefficient when it comes to damage, so instead I chose to pick Acrimony for extra damage over time multiplier, but you could skip this and you can go for extra AoE if you wanted to. Then we have also extra AoE coming from these nodes. So this is the Executioner, which is increased AoE if you killed recently. Damage with ailments from 200 melee weapons and 5% AoE. So this is just damage with 200 melee weapons and AoE. And then we're getting a bunch of like super straightforward stuff. So we're getting some life, we're getting the elemental overload, we're getting some fire damage over time multiplier, fist damage converted to fire, we're getting the aura stuff, we're getting some life, we're getting some life regen because there is not much recovery. We're not leeching because we're playing an Ignite build. So if I'm not killing and not getting life from Cinder Solo Urn, I need some way to recover some life. So in order to not fall over, I have to have some regen. Then we have more life. We have more life with armor, +1 to maximum elemental resistances. So we have 77, 76, 76. What else do we have? Call to Arms, which gives me the instant war cries, and then more aura stuff. So you can see like this is pretty straightforward, very, very simple pathing. Only this part at the beginning is kind of awkward because because it doesn't give us anything useful. And then for the jewels that are the smaller ones, we're using something like damage over time, global accuracy, life, reservation efficiency. I needed one jewel with reservation efficiency, and I needed some extra accuracy, so I stuck that here. Then we have another jewel with accuracy, chance to avoid being shocked. So I needed chance to avoid being shocked because we have 60 on boots, and then we're getting 40 here, so that gives me 100, and that helps for my storm shroud, right? So the storm shroud here gives me 100% chance to avoid all elemental ailments instead of just shock. And then we have here accuracy, evasion, life, and phasing on kill. Phasing very useful if your character doesn't move too fast. And then we have also grand spectrum. So I got +1 to minimum frenzy charges, I got +5 to maximum life, and I have also 15% increased elemental damage per grand spectrum with some increased effect of non-damaging ailments. These were actually pretty cheap. I didn't expect them to be that cheap. And that's basically how the passive skill tree looks like, and super standard for any Ignite build, which is getting guaranteed shock for extra single target damage, Shaper of Flames for ignites, Mastermind of Discord for exposure, and then Heart of Destruction for AoE and single target damage. And then I'm also using Grand Spectrum, so I already mentioned that. Yeah, I think I mentioned everything when it comes to the passive skill tree. The build is super fun to play. I've done something similar before with Cleave Slayer. Like if you have any like nice looking MTX for Herald of Ash, this build is gonna feel so good. Herald of Ash doesn't really do that much for me. The physical explode definitely carries. Like with so much AoE, it's very large, does so much damage that it definitely is going to like chain propagate itself. But the Herald of Ash is what makes it look so insane, right? So if you have some good Herald of Ash MTX, you will definitely enjoy this build. It's very nice for mapping. It's not something that you can like push high amount of wisps with. It's not going to be comfortable. But if you want to push like huge amount of pack size, like if you want to test some pack size strategy, blow up expeditions and get like kill like 400 monsters with a single attack, this would be a build for you. So for that, I highly recommend it. You can check out my previous video where I show how this build performs with just auto attack and just T16. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like the video if you liked it, and see you next time. Bye bye.